Let me give you a more actual real-world example than Amanda Gorman, because most people are not going to be invited to share their so-called art at a presidential inaugural and then be granted with a multi-million-dollar contract from a major corporation. On YouTube, I like to interview sometimes people who have these interesting websites. I recently interviewed this really, and I don't want to fall into the cliche, but there was a young black man who called Tunrific Tariq.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, he does some interesting analyses of some cartoons, some I've never heard of, some that are classic cartoons like Charlie Brown, Fat Albert. And he's very on point. And we had a good talk. We talked about some of the criticism people have said from him using the word nigger and whatnot. But just as many YouTube channels are very cynical. There is another YouTube channel that I was watching because you click onto one thing and it leads to another one. And it's a YouTube channel called Thought Slime. And on this channel is this Canadian fellow who's probably in his early to mid 30s. He's kind of portly, not fat, but kind of portly. He's unkempt looking. He looks more unkempt than I do generally. And he's got a beard. And he generally he's a left-wing type, and he says he's non-gender binary, although he's married. And he often pours out his own mental ills into the world when he's doing a video about this or that political topic. And 1 out of his 10 videos might have something of some depth to say. Most of the time, it's a lot of self-pitying stuff. Well, I saw a video he did a couple of weeks ago where he comes on, and I don't know if this was a stage video or he actually felt this way, and he comes on and he's talking about his own mental illness and how he's a fraud and this whatnot. Now, there have been some famous YouTubers much more popular than he is. He gets maybe 50 to 200,000 views on his videos, not millions, but there have been some YouTubers who have disappeared and claimed they've had assorted mental issues or harassment issues. He comes on and he does this 20-minute, 25-minute video. The first 15, 20 minutes of him basically just sprawling his mental ills onto the world, how he's a fraud and he's gloomy and whatnot, and how his production value sucks and he doesn't deserve to make a living from this because he's failed at every job that he's had and whatnot. And just when you think that it might be serious and he might actually have mental illness, he ends the video with him a couple of days later saying, everything's fine, I'm this, that, blah, blah. So you don't know whether he really had mental illness or whatnot, but people flooded him with what Jessica will call psychic fuel for people who are manipulators like that. He apparently got a boost to his Patreon site. And I just found it to be a very cynical and a very deceptive way to try to, whether it's get money or get huzzas to do. And I think that's ultimately a smaller version of the Amanda Gorman thing. I don't think I think that's her name, Amanda Gorman. I don't think Amanda Gorman set out to score a multi-million-dollar deal. She's just someone who hit the jackpot. But this fellow, he seemed very cynical and he seemed very deceptive. And I think, and even though I would never have donated him, I don't know if it's a grift or not, but I think cynically it might have been. If you look at it, his website, his YouTube channel is called Thought Slime. It was 2 or 3 weeks ago. You'll see the video where he's calling himself a fraud. And I think unfortunately, him even doing that video, even if it was real, plays into the idea that the mentally ill are not to be trusted, that the mentally ill are working some kind of a grift, that the mentally ill deserve their thing. And whether he realizes or not, he did a great, great disservice, not just to himself, but to mentally ill people who've suffered like Bruce. And I don't know if he's suffered the way Bruce has suffered. He's certainly not as old. He's half the age of Bruce. But I think a lot of things like that play into that.